The SEAL commander laughed when she laid down with a rifle, shaking his head as he barked. That's over 2,200 yards. Even my best men wouldn't try it. And the others chuckled with folded arms, leaning on gear crates, whispering bets under their breath about how fast she'd miss. But she didn't blink, didn't shift, didn't even respond, just lay flat on the sun-warmed date, her breathing calm, eyes on the target through a scratched scope, left elbow braced in the sand, when fluttering the ends of her braid as heat shimmered in the air. And behind her stood 20 seasoned operators who thought this was some joke, some political favor sent from D.C., just another test gone wrong. Because why else would the brass assign a young woman sniper? Unknown call sign, no confirmed combat, no record they could dig up, to a black flag operation involving 3 rogue generals holding hostages in a desert compound, the same 3 generals responsible for leaking nuclear launch keys to enemy groups and vanishing without a trace until now. And the only thing between their escape and a massacre was her shot. But she stayed silent, focused, fingers light on the rifle's grip, heart slow like her mother had taught her, her breathing perfectly timed with the wind. And while the commander ordered a fallback for drone recon, she whispered, "No time," and fired, the shot cracking the silence like a whip, slicing the air across 2 ridge lines, past radio towers, through the open balcony of the compound, and struck the first general in the temple, dropping him mid-sentence as he leaned over a map table. And even before the spotter gasped, she had already reloaded, shifted her hips 2 degrees, compensated for elevation, and fired again. The second general was in motion, reaching for a radio, unaware his skull had just been marked, and the round shattered the back of his head before he could scream. And the third was trying to flee, running toward the far hallway, but she squeezed the trigger once more, and the round caught him mid-stride, chest collapsing as he slammed into the wall and dropped, with his boots twitching. And by the time her finger lifted off the trigger, 3 high-value targets were neutralized, and the hostage room had gone still, the surveillance feeds confirming 3 American engineers still alive, duct-taped and terrified but untouched. And behind her, no one spoke, not even the commander, not even the arrogant sniper who'd bragged earlier about his kill house record, because they'd all watched something they didn't understand. Not luck, not training, but legacy. And when the SEALs moved in, they found the place cleared, 3 generals down with surgical precision, no alarms triggered, no alert sent, like the bullets had been whispers. And when they returned, the commander stared at her and asked, "Who trained you?" And she finally answered, "Lila Vance." And jaws dropped because that name was not just familiar, it was forbidden, tied to a dozen classified missions and a sniper who had disappeared during Operation Ember Sky, the one mission even Special Ops whispered about, where an entire battalion was wiped out except one sniper who stayed behind to buy time and was declared KIA, except she wasn't dead. She was alive and living under a new name, raising her daughter in silence, never speaking of war but training her every day with empty cans, D-trails, wind charts, and lessons like, never fire if you don't know why you're pulling the trigger. And her daughter grew up with calloused fingers, strong shoulders, and eyes that saw more than people wanted to show. And now here she was, no badge, no rank, no applause, just results. And when the Pentagon got word, they didn't send medals, they sent silence, because those generals weren't just enemies, they were ghosts tied to internal corruption. And her kills exposed too much, so the files were sealed, her name wiped, her rifle confiscated, and she was flown out on a quiet jet at night with no destination listed. But she knew where she was going, because hours later, she stepped onto a cold mountain range and saw a familiar figure standing in the snow. Her mother, alive, holding a rifle, nodding once without speaking. And that was a real mission beginning, because the sniper school her mother now ran wasn't listed anywhere, didn't have a flag or building, just a scattered camp in the hills where shadows trained shadows. And she was the final test, because the only way in was to hit a moving target at 2,200 yards with a borrowed rifle under real risk. And she'd done it, not just to prove her skills but to see who would come after her, who would try to silence the truth. And 2 nights later, they did. A kill team in black gear came to her tent. But she was gone, already on another ridge watching them through night vision. And when they raised their rifles, they fell one by one, not killed but shot through the legs, left to scream for evac, with notes pinned to their jackets reading, "Tell your boss she sees everything." And those words sent shockwaves through command, because no one knew who she was. No face, no name, just the legend growing. And months passed, and soldiers in crisis zones began reporting a phantom sniper saving their teams from ambushes, dropping enemies from impossible distances, never speaking, never staying, just appearing and vanishing like wind. And commanders started leaving her messages hidden in mission files, not orders but requests. "If you're watching, we need help." And she always answered, not for medals, not for revenge, but because her mother had told her one thing again and again: the world forgets women like us. But bullets don't need names, and when she saved a group of Marines trapped in the Honduran hills by dropping 6 cartel bosses from 1.8 miles in storm conditions, the only sign she'd been there was a scratch coin left near the rifles, a silver disc with a V burned into it. And even generals started whispering about the V ghost. And then one day, a photo leaked. Just a grainy shot of her walking away from a ridge, rifle slung, wind in her braid. And a tabloid ran it with the headline, "The SEAL Commander laughed." Then she ended a war, and it went viral before being erased by defense censors. But the story never died, because those who saw her work knew they'd seen something rare, not just skill, but purpose. And her old SEAL commander, now retired, gave lectures on leadership, and always ended with the same story. "I once told a girl she couldn't make the shot. She didn't argue. She just did it." And he'd pause, then say, "Best leader I ever saw never gave an order." And when someone asked him her name, he'd smile and say, "You don't name the wind." And that was the truth. She didn't want fame, didn't want credit, didn't even stay in one place long enough to be thanked. And yet every major mission in the last 5 years that went right when it should have gone wrong had her fingerprints, invisible but felt. And sometimes, late at night, rookies at sniper school would find a lone woman sitting by the range, carving something into the ground with a knife, a distance, a date, and nothing more. And if they asked who she was, she'd say, "Just the daughter of a woman who never missed," and leave before dawn. And somewhere out there, when war creeps in and politics get loud, she listens, she watches, and when the world says, "No one can make that shot," she lifts her rifle and proves them wrong again and again and again.